Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Tonight at the RNC, Donald Trump is giving the keynote speech. And I haven't been this interested in a Donald Trump speech in a long time. Neither have you. Look, dodging a bullet, having one whiz through your ear, coming just a centimeter away from death. That can change a man. And we haven't heard one syllable from this dude since then. Meanwhile, on the other side of the aisle, you have President Biden saying he's got COVID, which would be like, what, the third time you got COVID? He's had like 6 boosters in the vaccine. Doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right at all. In fact, he had an event earlier in the day yesterday, and he didn't look sick. He kind of looked daffy, but he wasn't like coughing or sneezing or had a runny nose or running around with this Kleenex. Seems kind of convenient. Now they have an excuse to hide him out in a basement for at least a week or so. He was hiding out in a basement for a week before the debate. That means he will spend half of the last month hiding out in a basement. Something's not right here. Let's ask my next guest, returning to the James Show, Talmadge Boston. Welcome back, sir, as an attorney and historian. What are you expecting to hear from Donald Trump tonight? Supposedly he had a speech, and since the shooting, he tore it up and rewrote a new one. Are we about to see a new Donald Trump?
We might. All the reports seem to be that barely hanging on to his life, as close as that bullet was, had a profound impact on him, and that he's totally rewritten his speech, and now he's all about unity. He's no longer a divider. Wouldn't that be a welcome change to the American people if he made that switch and broadened the base of the Republican Party? We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, the calls on Joe Biden to step down are ramping up, but I have a hard time believing this is because of his cognitive abilities. I think Team Blue is just looking at the polls and not seeing any other way out.
I think the polls are tied to the fact that people are realizing that he's in cognitive decline, that he's clearly not up to 4 more years, and that's impacting the polls. That's impacting the donations. It's as clear as the nose on your face. Every interview he's done since then, he can't complete his sentences. He loses track of his thoughts, gaffes. Couldn't remember the name of the Secretary of Defense. All these day after day after day, one gaffe after another, one inability to complete a thought after another. That's what's driving the polls.
You know what? I haven't played that soundbite yet, but yeah, he called his Secretary of Defense a black man when he was in a BET interview.
It's all about treating people with dignity, and it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense a black man. I named Ketanji Brown. I mean, because of the people I've named.
Who's giving him heat for that to begin with? What is he talking about, Talmadge?
Well, I think he's talking about how proud he is that he has put African Americans in key positions. He at least remembered the name of the African American woman who he put on the U.S. Supreme Court, but he couldn't remember the name of his African American Secretary of Defense. So he's trying to, once again, blow his own horn, but because of his fading mind, he's not able to pull it off.
Do you think anybody's mind is going to be changed after tonight? Are there really open-minded, undecided voters watching tonight?
I think there may be. There's a lot of never-Trumpers who've been around a long time. Of course, the Democratic Party is now in such total chaos. My guess is Biden will drop out on or before Monday, sometime over the weekend. It looks like his successor will be Kamala Harris, whose approval rating historically has been lower than Biden's. Certainly the Republicans have done a terrific job of presenting a united front at the convention and saying that they're in favor of the things that most Americans are in favor of, having a stronger defense, wanting our allies to pay their fair share, reducing inflation, keeping jobs in America, border security. These are the issues that almost all Americans support. And so I think some people are rethinking their attitude toward Trump and would like to be pleasantly surprised that maybe he's softening up in terms of the harshness of his language and the way he's been such a divider. And maybe he is having a transformation that will be good for everybody.
All right, Talmadge Boston, tell the guy listening about your new book. Is this How the Best Did It, the one you just went on tour for?
Yeah, how the best did it. Leadership lessons from our top presidents on our 8 greatest presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, both Roosevelt's, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Reagan. The most important leadership traits of all of those 8 and how they can be applied by anybody in any field of endeavor. It's been endorsed by 3 Pulitzer Prize-winning historians as well as the other top presidential historians. So it came out in April. I've spoken from San Francisco to Boston and Chicago to San Antonio, and have a big fall lined up leading up to the election. Be speaking at the Bush Library, the Reagan Library, the Congress Hall in Philadelphia. So I've been on 2 hours worth of C-SPANs as well as Brett Baier on Fox and his shows. So got a lot of good publicity and a lot of good coverage. And with everybody focused on the presidential election, it's still got legs.
Well, and on one of your previous books, The Ford was written by Ken Burns, one of the biggest documentarians in American history. Are you friends with Ken Burns?
Yeah, I was on the board of Ken's nonprofit that raises money from private donations for the funding of his films, and I regard Ken as a friend, and he is the top documentarian of the last century, if not all time, and I'm a great fan of his films. He and I don't always agree on our politics, but I think he's a good man and incredibly talented documentarian.
Yeah, his politics aren't great, but his movies are. His documentaries are fantastic. Well, thank you, Talmadge Boston. You can find more on him at talmadgeboston.com. Thank you very much, sir. All right, coming up next, I still have a couple more sound bites I want to play from you. It's some RNC speech clips, and then a little bit of very rough opinion coming up after that. It's The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Look, something that you need to be reminded of every once in a while is that Joe Biden, you know how he sounds now. He does like the stumbling and the mumbling, and you know, you've kind of gotten used to that. Every once in a while, you need to go back and hear what he was like. This clip is from 12 years ago. The year was 2012. He was the vice presidential candidate running for re-election, debating against, what was his name? Paul Ryan. I mean, and look, you don't have to listen to necessarily, that was a rhetorical question, sir. You don't have to listen to what he's saying, like the policy positions. Just listen to how sharp he is, how much faster he talks, how he talks in a higher register, which means he's pushing more air more quickly. Listen to how he does have a couple stutters in there, but his stutters back then were different. It wasn't and he does this thing now where he trails off at the end of his sentence, and he sort of ends his statements with mumbles. And he didn't used to do that. He used to speak all the way through his sentences. So this is him in 2012. Tell me if it doesn't sound different.
Let me translate. Let me have a chance to translate.
I'll come back in a second then, right?
First of all, I was there when Ronald Reagan tax breaks, when he gave specifics of what he was going to cut. No, number one, in terms of tax expenditures. Number two, 97% of the small businesses in America make less than $250,000. Let me tell you who some of those other small businesses are. Hedge funds that make $600-800 million a year. That's they count as small businesses because they're pass through. Let's look at how sincere they are.
All right, see, that's what he used to sound like. That's the Joe Biden you knew for your entire life, or however long you were paying attention to politics. But listen, this was him giving an interview, and I believe I got this audio on Monday, I think it was. But listen to how he trails off at the end of sentences and stuff.
What happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
All right.
Now, he actually said, I don't plan on having another performance on that level. But it was barely vowels and consonants. So just listen to that again. But listen, it's not just that he's mumbling. It's like the physically speaking, he's not pushing air like he used to. He's not holding notes. He is running out of effort, unable to complete a sentence.
You have another performance on that on that level.
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
All right.
Did you catch that? Because it sounds like mumbles, but if you turn it way up and you listen, he's saying, I don't plan on having another performance on that level. his brain is kind of working, but it's just not transferring well because it came out. It's like when you have toddlers. Wasn't it weird how you had to translate for your toddler because your toddler had a mush mouth? You're just so used to hearing it that when an adult said, "What did he say?" you could translate it for him. Yeah, he said he doesn't plan on having another performance on that level. The other clip I wanted to play for you from the RNC comes from our governor, Greg Abbott. There was a "send them back" chant. Now, you can imagine CNN heard this, MSNBC heard this, and after the Greg Abbott speech, they were all saying, "This is the most scary un-American chant ever." I mean, this is straight out of the Hitler's playbook, basically. But this is what one of the things they're trying to scare you with. Send them back.
He will arrest the criminal illegal immigrants and put them behind bars.
Criminal illegal immigrants.
Or send them back.
Send them back. I mean, he was referencing specifically, you heard him say criminal illegal aliens. We're not just going to go round up all non-white people and send them to the nearest other country. MSNBC wants you to think that they just love being scared. I mean, it's like people who like watching scary movies. They just think it's fun. They're like, oh, that's so scary. That was great. The last clip I want to squeeze in here before the end of the show. Culturally speaking, I know you may not think it's important, but Joe Rogan has the most popular podcast, the most listened to / watched podcast in podcasting, reaches a younger demographic, and is one of the burrs under the saddle of Team Blue because this guy is converting people by the buttloads, and he still considers himself a liberal. He still considers himself a Democrat. But he's not a big fan of what's going on with Biden. He's not a big fan of woke. He was skeptical of the coronavirus stuff. He doesn't think men can have babies. And so when he has this reaction to Trump's shooting, you got to imagine this is what thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions see as well. Joe Rogan. This was from his Monday show.
How about that president? How about that Trump fella? How crazy is this? If there's ever been a real indication that we're in a simulation, it's like this season of USA is the craziest season that's ever existed. There's so many twists and turns, so many plots, so many villains, so many incompetent, bumbling fools that you're like, there's no way that lady's a heartbeat away from the president. There's no way. There's no way someone is not telling her to stop saying that same thing over and over again. What can be unburdened by what has been? Like, she just says it over and over and over again. This isn't real. This is writing. Someone wrote this. It seems like a script.
When a president that is giving a speech gets shot in the ear and then stands up and goes full John Bender at the end of Breakfast Club.
Bro. He pumps his fist in the air.
That was a crazy
and says, fight, fight, fight. The guy who's the photographer is a wizard. That guy who got that photograph, find out his name, because this guy's award-winning photographer.
With the flag above it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the angle that he got it, like where he was standing when he took the photo. It's one of the most iconic photos of all time.
And that is one of the big problems. The writing on this season of USA is just so out there. It's not believable. I mean, who would really... Seriously, if we're not in the Matrix, if we're not in a simulation, you mean someone put a 5'4" chubby girl on the presidential detail of Secret Service detail? The meat shield was supposed to be a little 5'4" chunky girl? What is she like? What was she doing before this? Was she the catcher on a softball team? She can't even holster her gun. You can't put anyone up there because the roof is slightly slanted, even though your other people are on the roof too. He turned his head at just the last second, and it hit him in the head enough to damage a cosmetic only, non-vital part of his body. The pictures, everything. Lazy writing. The people who are controlling the matrix that we're in right now, the simulation that we're in, lazy writing. Terrible writing. It's like you work for Suits or Entourage. You're just lazy. It's sensational. It's fun. It's just it's not believable anymore. Can't wait till we get unplugged from this matrix, huh? All right, this has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.